Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. A new directive from Washington is asking US embassies worldwide to actively counter foreign propaganda, working even with military psychological units and using platforms like X. It raises questions about diplomacy, information warfare, and credibility. Joining us is Ivana Stradner. She's a research fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and a regular contributor. Ivana, welcome again to TVP World. Great to have you back.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Now, it's a defensive move, and simply President Trump or his administration is saying, you know, let's get some information out there and tell America's story. I mean, what's wrong with that?
As far as I'm concerned, there is nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it's really past time to do that because Russia, China, and Iran have been waging an information war against the West for a very long time. And it's a very unfair battlefield because as a democracy, it's extremely difficult to fight this war. Both Russia and China have been interfering in the US elections. They have launched daily influence operations. And we have been, constantly on the defensive. So the Trump administration decided to bring this war also to all those regimes and to put them on the defensive so they spend time, energy, and resources defending themselves. So honestly, I don't see nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, both Russia and China believe that we're already waging an information war against them. So if they believe so, let's just do it.
Right. Now, is America taking the lead on this, or has Europe actually been kind of working away as well?
So the United States was the superpower during the Cold War when it comes to information warfare. That's precisely what contributed to the collapse of the Soviet Union. But after the end of the Cold War, the United States thought that maybe missiles and hard power were more important than soft power. So in Washington, we abandoned a very powerful tool. And the United States started waking up after Russian election interference almost a decade ago. But here is the thing. I think Europe, especially Central and Eastern Europe, have been more actively engaged in fighting Russia in the information space, while the United States has very, very strict rules on that. And there were numerous agencies that were doing like defensive stuff, such as, for example, exposing those activities. But on the offensive, we were not very active, especially when it comes to embassies. As a matter of fact, when you look at, for example, how Russia and China have leveraged Platform X, how they used humor, their government officials, to use memes, to use funny videos, that tells you really all you need to know that they actually brought this war to social media and Platform X in a very powerful way. And with all due respect, writing all those boring tweets coming from Brussels or Washington or London, nobody cares. So I think really bringing, more lively debate on Platform X, to use humor and to use similar tools like our adversaries, with the caveat that we are still democracy and we have to follow certain rules. I think it's a really, really good place to put them on the defensive.
Well, it certainly sounds like a good idea, Ivana, but only if it gets through to the audiences in Russia, China and Iran. But of course, there's a challenge with that, isn't it? I mean, one can't easily access information from outside those countries because of, well, the legal environment. Tell us more about that.
So a couple of things. Russia and China are also waging this war on Platform X and other social media platforms also against the Western people in the West. You're absolutely right that because of what they call like a Russian and China sovereign internet law, it's extremely difficult to penetrate their information space. Just take a look at what has been happening over the past 1 month inside Russia with internet blackout. accounts. Russia also threatened to ban WhatsApp and Telegram. Since 2022, they banned almost all Western social media platforms. And just, for basically April the 1st, Putin decided to bring probably a new joke to the Russians. We didn't land with your humor that now he wants to ban VPN that actually helped millions of Russians to circumvent very strict laws and to still have access to social media and Western media writ large. So that's something that worries me more than anything else right now when it comes to the information space, that even some Western platforms are very afraid, to irritate the Kremlin, and they are falling through Russian threats, that they have to ban VPN system. But here is the thing. Let's also not put Putin on a pedestal, thinking that he is a master strategist when it comes to tech. Russia tried to ban Twitter a long time ago, and when they tried to do that, they also basically undermined the Kremlin's website, and there were lots of technical chaos with that. So I do believe that Putin will have numerous difficulties to truly enforce banning a VPN system inside Russia.
Right. You mentioned VPN. Now, that's virtual private network. How does that get around the constraints that exist in the Russian market?
So, as you mentioned, since 2022, Russia used numerous efforts to completely control the information space inside Russia. So, for example, Facebook, Platform X, or Instagram were already banned, and numerous Russians started using VPN system to circumvent that and to go around to have access to all those social media platforms. And there are numerous reports that Russia ranks highly when it comes to the use of VPN system. Putin understands very well that who controls the information environment wins. And that's precisely just like Stalin. He fears his own people. And that's precisely why he has been working very hard to abolish all those social media platforms. As a matter of fact, he has another idea to put inside Russia a new platform, Max, and Russians are not happy about it. There were, some protests inside Russia already on social media. You can hear the Russians complaining about this because they don't trust. I mean, there are numerous encryption problems over there. Whoever believes that such a platform might not be monitored by Russian security services lives in a fairy tale, because we really, if history is any indication, regimes such as Russian government or the Chinese government, they fear ideas, they fear freedom, and they fear their own people. And they will do everything possible to put restrictions on such efforts. But at least now we know that Putin is quite, upset with what's happening with the information space inside Russia. So maybe this is a good reminder for Europe and the United States to bring actually more VPN systems to the Russian society.
Well, it certainly sounds that way, Ivana. Now, what do we know about the effectiveness of the information war that these countries, Russia, China and Iran, have been waging on the West? How effective have they been in changing public perception? You mentioned their use in elections and so on.
I often get asked, are we winning or are we losing the information war? And I think it's really not a good question to ask in such a manner, because how can we know whether 3 tweets on Platform X or 3 posts or memes or reels on Instagram can influence the behavior of certain population? That's not how Russia and China think. They perceive this as a protracted, long effort where you can have information superiority on a day 1, but not on a day 2. And all those tiny increments might lead to that information superiority. Think about this. They love to, throw spaghetti all over the wall and to see what's going to stick. And they're, doing that 24/7, 365 days around different efforts, whether it's the question of Russia's war in Ukraine, whether they're the question of social or economic issues now with the war in Iran. Several weeks ago, it was about, that Europe is going to freeze because of the winter. In a few months, I expect, related to the World Cup influence operations coming from both Russia and China. And people may think, this is an invisible weapon. And it's a really dangerous weapon because you cannot see, you cannot touch, but it has very powerful influence because it can polarize the society. And nowadays, you don't even know what to believe. And when you add on top of that AI, where you absolutely, as a regular citizen, you don't even know what is true and what is not true, that actually adds additional layer to this whole thing. And that's precisely why I believe that the best way to counter Russian, Chinese, and Iranian efforts, which, by the way, will not stop anytime soon, is to go on the defensive. You know what? They already believe that we're waging an information war, so let's just do it. But here is also one other thing. In Brussels and Washington, risk aversion is rewarded. We have the best technology, we have the best people for such efforts, but what we lack is risk tolerance. So in order to win this war, we need brave people in governments who will be ready to worry more about what's the best for their society instead of worrying about preserving their position at work.
Indeed, risk tolerance, of course, and also longevity. Politicians aren't around very often for long enough to make this a permanent feature of their policy. Ivana, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop this conversation there, but do come back and see us as soon as you possibly can. Thank you for taking the time, and have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks, but don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.